South African Revenue Service, SARS, its Commissioner, Kieswetter, says they're making steady progress in clamping down on fraudsters. Kieswetter says so far the Revenue Service has recovered 3 billion rand. While tabling the national budget last week, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana revised tax revenue upwards to 1.7 trillion. That's 94 billion rand higher than previously projected. For the first time in 15 years, revenue exceeds non-interest spending. Let's unpack this and also the tax rebates that were announced in the budget speech last week. SARS Commissioner Kieswetter joins us via our video link this morning. Good morning, Commissioner. It's great to see you on this Sunday morning. Was that surprising that tax revenue has been revised upwards, given this discussion that we're always having about the challenges insofar as a declining tax base is concerned?
I think the Minister bases his confidence in the projection based on two factors. The first is obviously we have seen a decline in the output from mining, but it's still significantly higher than the pre-COVID production pricing, and so that has given us a boost. But I think the really good news story, and what encourages us, is the fact that we are slowly seeing the benefit, or what we call the compliance dividend, of a slowly recovering SARS as a result of our rebuilding efforts. And I think that is good because as we go through the business cycle, what really will bring us sustainable performance of the revenue levels that we have seen is coming from a better than, a more effective and efficient revenue administration.
Yeah. So, as you say, compliance is improving, but also SARS is clamping down on tax fraud.
Actually, you would have heard that on Friday we announced an early morning raid that resulted in us seizing 300 kilograms of pure cocaine to the value of 1.3 billion. I can share with you that early this morning, an intergovernmental team led by SARS, Customs, together with the South African Police Services and the SNDF, also had a very successful seizure. We seized more than 100 master boxes of containing cigarettes, 4 trucks that was used to carry cigarettes. Initial estimated value over 10 million rand across our Beitbridge border post. So I think they definitely are more vigilant, working more closely with other agencies to gather criminal intelligence. And I think you will increasingly see the success of such interventions yielding positive results.
Yeah. So Commissioner, these are yielding positive results, your investigations, insofar as syndicates are concerned, but SARS is also going after individuals.
Well, I mean, compliance is not just by criminals. We have ordinary individuals and companies. We have seen, for example, this year, just in compliance of our large businesses, we have had a significant number of interventions where businesses involve themselves in what we commonly know is in the industry as base erosion or transfer pricing practices, and that has led to over 200 companies yielding almost 3 billion rand. But you've also seen success in the courts. We've had a few very significant court findings, one in terms of a large asset manager who had also been involved in transfer pricing malpractices. We've had a very, very important precedent-setting ruling in terms of when would a royalty payment be dutiable, and then also in terms of the misuse or abuse of trusts, misusing attribution rules. We've seen a defining outcome there. So just in terms of large businesses, we have seen a significant and key number of outcomes that will have a compounding dividend, which will lead to the correcting of taxpayer behavior and therefore sustainable revenue contribution. I also shared that we have handed over, in the current year, almost 178 cases to the NPA. 94 of them were concluded with success rate of over 98%. In other words, 92 of those cases. And this would involve fraud in terms of either over-declaring expenditures or under-declaring revenue, And then we've also had a number of Zondo cases that we've concluded, yielding over 3 billion rand. And so it's not one big thing. It is a number of small and not so small interventions that collectively has yielded 167 billion rand of revenue which otherwise would not have been in the coffers of government.
Commissioner, are you seeing a real sort of increase in syndicates and their work on tax evasion schemes? Is there a proliferation of these kinds of schemes? And certainly with the numbers that you've just outlined to us, it does appear so.
Unfortunately, and maybe for those who are listening, we differentiate between criminal investigation by individual taxpayers, for which we have a dedicated division. But then we have also set up a separate division that looks at syndication. This is where more than one party, some onshore and some offshore, involve themselves in the syndication of activities that ultimately seek to defraud the fiscus. And sadly, in South Africa, we see a proliferation. So this year, we have already concluded we are engaged in over 330 preliminary investigations, and we have completed 215 investigations in what we call in the illicit economy. And just through that work, we have raised almost 4 billion rand. We've also had successful convictions, as I said, in, say, capture cases. We are involved in 46 cases which we believe requires audit revision, and then 78 criminal investigations, and the assessment value of that is also somewhere between 500 million and 1 billion rand.
And obviously, your dedicated teams, Commissioner, they are well-versed, they are equipped, they've got the forensic, is it forensic know-how insofar as pursuing these cases is concerned?
It is, but we can still do with a significant amount of upscaling of the capacity. Let me give you an example of the complexity and the time that it takes. We announced earlier this year that we had busted a cigarette and tobacco syndicate. To give you a sense, it took a team of 9 people 3 years of persistent work. We had outsourced the forensic work to a third-party company. They gave us a quote of 100 million rand to work through 60 terabytes of data. We decided we couldn't afford that, and our own teams did the forensic investigation, collecting and connecting the dots. And after 3 years of persistent effort, we busted a $3 billion syndicate.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, what it proves is that we do have the expertise here at home.
We do have expertise at home. When we go to the minister and we plead for more money, which thankfully we're getting in small doses, we work in 3 areas. It's the investment in data science, because we just cannot do the work at the scale that is required without data analytics, predictive analytics, artificial intelligence. So we employ people who write machine learning algorithms to wade through the data, to profile taxpayers, and to select the cases that are of interest for us. We build technology interfaces between providers of third-party data. We collect data from overseas jurisdictions. We get data from our own banks and insurance companies. We get data from the FIC. So technology interface is important for us. And then increasingly we are automating routine work so that our people can actually work in an augmented way with the intelligence provided, the insights provided from data, to also step up the work that they do. So it is building a very sophisticated operating model that brings into a synthesis the endeavors of our people, but supported by data-driven insights and technology interfaces.
So for interest's sake, Commissioner, what would have cost you, according to the quote that you received from that outsourced company, 100 million rand to go through those 60 terabytes of data? What did it cost you in the end?
Well, in the end, the people we employ are obviously sunk cost, and all of the work they did without spending an extra cent to any third-party provider. So it is all within the annual allocation of the SARS budget.
Yeah, some interesting lessons there for perhaps some of our other state capture cases as well. Commissioner, I want to talk to you about the tax incentives that the Finance Minister announced in his budget speech last week. Of course, the big one, the one that's on all our minds as we just come out of a week of stage 6 load shedding, is around that solar incentive. What are the important points that we need to know this morning, Commissioner?
I think, first of all, let's look at the debt that has been granted to Eskom. Firstly, to understand that the debt in any case is underwritten by government. Now, by taking it off the Eskom balance sheet, it relieves the Eskom balance sheet, and so that Eskom, the utility, can focus on making the appropriate capital and operating expenditure to restore the performance of the existing plant. That cannot be overstated, because if we do not get the current coal fleet to operate more reliably than it currently is, then anything else we do will not solve the problem, because we cannot bring enough renewables on time quickly enough to replace or displace the 48,000 installed capacity. Mm-hmm. Secondly, the Minister is obviously, by incentivizing up to 125% of the total expenditure, incentivizing businesses, large and small, to become more self-sufficient or energy self-reliant. And what that does, it takes the pressure off the grid. Companies then are able to generate for their own need, but also through the pass-through tariffs, they can sell any excess power into the grid. All of that works alongside the improved plant performance to help us bring a better match between the supply and the demand. To give you a number, on a good day, Eskom can only deliver 26,000 megawatts, and our maximum demand is around about 32,000. So we always have a shortfall of about 6,000 megawatts, and then when you have other unplanned breakdowns, that gets us higher up the load shedding. So those incentives are really meant to crowd in additional megawatts while we're trying to fix the existing plant. Yeah. And then the Minister also, through the incentive to individuals like you and me, the 25% of solar panel investment to a maximum of 15,000 rand, it really is just to give some form of relief. One can argue that it's not enough, but it's a little bit of help for individuals who also want to make themselves self-reliant. And I think the important message there, because you can argue, well, it's only the wealthy people that can afford that. Well, that may be so. But by doing that, those who can't, people in the townships and people who don't really afford electricity privately, the megawatts that's available through the Eskom grid is then available for people in the townships, people who can't afford private. And so the whole system benefits by those who are incentivized.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of chatter about exactly what you've just mentioned, Commissioner, that there's an argument there that it's not enough, that this tax incentive is not enough, given that we're paying for a service twice again, as is the case with health and security. But just explain to us, just so we have it plainly on paper this morning, Commissioner. So this is an incentive that is available for 1 year only, right? It starts on the 1st of March up until February of next year. And this rebate can be used to offset your individual personal income tax liability up to the amount of 15,000 rand. Is that right?
That's right. So the incentive for individuals is for 1 year. The incentive for companies is for 2 years. And the reason it's for 1 year, you really want people to, with greater urgency, make the investment. Mm-hmm. So to get the full 15,000 rand, you would have to spend 60,000 rand on the solar panel component only. In addition to that, the homeowner would then have to buy an inverter, as well as batteries to store the electricity that is created during the day to be used when the sun sets. So the 25% is the percentage, but the maximum you can claim is up to 15,000. So if you spend more than 60,000, you will still only be able to claim the 15,000.
Yeah. SARS Commissioner Kieswetter, let me thank you for your time this morning. Thanks for outlining those various issues, the tax rebate insofar as solar is concerned.